Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and I'm pleased to welcome you to this forum where we will be looking at bridging the financing gaps. This program is coming to you courtesy of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, the MSME sectoral group. Just to introduce myself, my name is Joe Dada. I chair the MSME Committee of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce, and I'm the CEO of Mid-City Associates Limited. Let me quickly introduce you to NBCC for those of you who may just be coming on board for the first time. The Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce is the foremost channel of trade and commerce. To be the foremost, our vision is to be the foremost channel of trade and commerce between Nigeria and Britain. That's our vision. And this we have consistently pursued over the years. The mission of our chamber is to continually encourage and promote mutually beneficial trade relations between Nigeria and Britain. We have our cardinal goals, which are stated, as you see. The first, and which is very core to us, is trade facilitation. And this we're noted for consistently. We also try to positively influence policy around government, around corporates, and so on. This we do by effectively communicating government policy to our members and to the general public, so as to be able to look at the areas of challenges and opportunities together. The Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce also has as its cardinal goal networking. Here you meet a broad spectrum of businesses, from the high corporates to the medium-sized ones, and even to emerging businesses. And finally, we have as our cardinal goal membership benefits. We try to add value to our members by way of doing all of these things that I've mentioned. And our members benefit from time to time from all of our programs. If you want to become a member, please, you are welcome to join us. You've seen the contacts on the screen, and please, we welcome members, and I'm sure you will have a good time with us. Once again, thank you for joining us on this program. Let me just quickly run through the webinar guidelines. Please, if your Zoom volume is too low, kindly check your system volume. And the webinar is being recorded and will be sent to you after the session. For you to make comments and to engage with us, you can use the chat icon, and also submit your questions via the Q&A icon, which will be answered during the Q&A session. Let me quickly go on to introduce our lead speaker for this afternoon. He's Dr. Benjamin Dike, Head of Business Banking, Standard Chartered Bank. Dr. Dike is highly experienced with over 20 years in the industry. And in his current role, he works specially with SMEs in trying to come up with financing solutions and options for them. He's quite deep, and I'm sure we'll be having an engaging time with him this afternoon. Dr. Benjamin holds a doctorate degree in credit management and also has a number of professional qualifications. He's also a member of the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, and he has a lot of experience in the area of financing generally. I'd like to welcome Dr. Dike shortly to make his presentation. Dr. Dike, over to you. Dr. Dike, you can now commence your presentation. Unmute your mic, please. Yes, please go ahead. Your mic is unmuted now.
Okay, thank you. All right, thanks a lot, Dr. Ada, and the entire NBCC team. Thanks. It's really a privilege to be on this platform today. And I think for me, it is a clear demonstration of the partnership we just recently got in to see how we can work together, Standard Chartered Bank and NBCC, to support our members, your members, and then, of course, our clients. So I want to thank you for this session today. May I request, we just need to know the sectorial, allocation, sort of who are here and what sectors they represent. So if you can help us indicate which sector of the business world, particularly in the SME space, that you belong to, manufacturing, schools, whatever you do, if you can help us indicate that, it will, eventually help us in zeroing in on certain things that may concern you. So please, just help us indicate. There's a questionnaire there. Just click on the sector that you belong to. We will be using that later. Thank you. All right. So we will jump right into our discussion today. Obviously, we're going to be talking about the situation we found ourselves as a people globally and how that has impacted SMEs, and therefore, how do we navigate the issue. The big elephant in the room for SMEs typically is financing. So how do we get about financing SMEs at this time? Okay, so that's where we are. I'm going to be sharing my screen with you. I don't know if you can see my screen. Okay, if you can see my screen, then we can go on. So what I'm going to do would be to just in a nutshell cover 5 key things. One would be some update on the Nigerian economy, and then share the implications of the crisis to Nigeria SMEs and how it is that you need to respond. And then we'll look at some fiscal responses from global developmental institutions across the world, and then particularly the Central Bank of Nigeria support initiatives for SMEs. That's where we now go into the financing part. And then I will wrap it up with some view on how Standard Chartered Bank can support you, both in your financial needs and some non-financial offerings that we have. Okay, so let me start. I think throughout this period of the pandemic, two statements have come through to me, which I want to use as a teaser to begin. I saw this first quote. It said, "Can we uninstall 2020 and install it again? This version has a virus." All right? And the answer is simple: no, you cannot. Okay, I think this is my way of saying the first messaging would be we need to adapt quickly to what is going on around us. All right? This 2020, it wasn't what we planned. It has happened. We need to move on. It cannot be uninstalled. We can't install it again. It is happened, it's happened. So we need to quickly adapt. And that's where adaptive leadership will become very, very critical as we go ahead, okay? The second quote I want to share with you is from Jack Ma. I found this very interesting. He said, for people in business, 2020 is really just a year for staying alive. Don't even talk about your dreams and plans. Just make sure you stay alive. If you can stay alive, then you would have made profit already. And I think this is also very important. I mean, we need to also come with a sense of gratitude for even being alive at this point, right? So what I'm going to be doing, let me just recap this, that what the world has faced, even in Nigeria, it is not just one crisis, because our attention has been drawn so much to the health crisis. So we've had three crises in one. There's the health crisis, there is the economic crisis, and there's the cultural crisis. And of course, there are various ways these things have impacted on all of us. The cases continue to rise globally. I don't look at those numbers. I have to put these numbers, I have to break my protocol and have to Google these numbers for the purposes of this presentation. I don't look at them. The reason being this: if you continue looking at these numbers, they may get you frozen, right? Because in the same way that coronavirus is killing people, that's how so many other major diseases are killing people, even at a faster rate, all right? My take, therefore, will be, we should be careful, not fearful. Okay, that's been my philosophy. Be careful, not fearful. In terms of economic crisis, of course, the whole projections for global growth in the economy has been reversed. All right. At the start of the year, the projection was that we're going to grow global economy by 3%, but projections are now that global economy is going to dip by 3.5%. Okay, 3.4% thereabout. Okay, so that shows us that there's a very serious crisis in our hands. Various GDPs are declining. There's no country that is unaffected, all right? And we've seen industries that have completely been altered. I mean, altered permanently. They are going to be modified. Some have disappeared completely, all right? So these things are there. Layoffs are all over the place. People are cutting back on, the number of their staff, okay? So that is on the economic side. And of course, in terms of cultural crisis, we've seen somebody say that I found this very interesting also, that we slept in one world and we woke up in a different world. Everyone is wearing masks. So it's a world that is under mask right now. So we are having to work from home. I'm doing this thing today from my home. Ordinarily, I would have been in the office doing this session, but we're all at home. I've been at home for the past 3 months plus, right? So those are the three crises we are facing, and particularly for those who are business leaders on this platform. Each of these things have very serious implications for you. Okay, so what I would do, let me just, in a nutshell, just talk through, what has happened in Nigeria. Again, I think that Nigeria has been hit in multiple ways, all right? So it's not just the pandemic. Our own was also, accentuated by other factors. So we saw drop in oil prices to historical lows. I mean, it's never happened this way before. I mean, it almost disappeared. Right? We had stockpiles of oil that were, on the sea, and nobody was even looking at them. You know why? Because, most of the people who buy our oil were heavily impacted by the crisis. And because we are a mono economy, I think it hit us so badly, so badly. And I think overall, it's a wake-up call for us all, to begin to think of how do we drive greater productivity? How do we produce in our country? How do we begin to look at, eating and consuming the things that we produce instead of importing? Because again, for those of you who have to bring your inputs from outside, I will talk a little bit more about that as we go on. You will notice that there's serious squeeze when it comes to foreign exchange liquidity. I mean, it's so tough at this time. Added to that is the decline in the value of the naira that we have seen. I mean, depending on which exchange rate you are using, we've seen the naira go down by 20% or even more if you look at the parallel market. So it's a major, crisis that we have faced as a country, and particularly for SMEs. And I'll tell you this. You see, when these things begin to happen, the greatest sector of the economy that gets impacted will be the SMEs. I'll give you an example. I have some of my clients who they are trying to source raw materials, all right, from outside the country. And there is no effects to be able to fund all of those. That a sustained scarcity of FX in that regard, which does not allow them bring their inputs, will mean that their businesses are at the risk of closing down. That is what it is. All right. And this can easily wipe away a lot of SMEs. And that's why it's important we have this kind of conversation to know what are the bubble traps and what can we do to be able to quickly move on. I read a book recently. I think it's entitled, the author called it The Reinventionist Mindset. Yes, The Reinventionist Mindset. And the author made a very powerful statement. He said that there is a serial killer that is currently on the prowl, all right, against companies. Serial killers right now killing many companies. And what's that serial killer? The status quo. That's what he said. So every business leader, I need to put it up front there, it is a time to begin to rethink our business model. You can't move slowly, and you cannot afford not to move. If you do any of those, you will die as a company. Your company will die. So it's a time to move away from the status quo, the virus of the status quo, and just begin to flip your mind and begin to reinvent yourself and reinvent your business. I saw this data and I felt it was very interesting. I mean, Faith Foundation did a brilliant work as they walked across all the states of the Federation, just trying to gauge the impact of this whole pandemic on businesses. We found out that the respondents, over 94% of them said they have been heavily impacted in one way or the other. And the best, if you look at the data point there, the biggest is their cash flow, all right? And of course, cash is the lifeblood of any business. So when you don't have cash, you're almost dying, all right? So that's what is happening. When the flows are not coming, and yet you still need to pay your expenses. So somebody called me the other day from Thailand, a lady that has a factory. And the factory has been closed down for the past 3 months. Rent is running, bank charges are running. And so what do? She just panicked and said she wants to sell the company because she can't cope with all the expenses that are coming, and yet you are not getting anything in. So it's a major situation, and businesses need to brace up for that. All right, I thought I should just share that data point. And this slide, I want to just talk through in a nutshell, in summary, what are the high points of the challenges that SMEs are facing. Now, this may not be all, and perhaps when we go into the question and answer session, you may be able to come up with fresh ones that we can add to this list, and then we can talk through that, all right? I think the first one is the cost pressure that is coming on businesses. I've just illustrated that with the example of the lady in Bangkok who is having issues. So businesses are in decline. So productivity is no longer there. People, you are not producing, and yet your cost is there. And it affects all sectors, all right? And even added to that, even when you are producing, who are the consumers buying it? Okay, so clients who are into, maybe you sell cars, who is buying cars at this time, all right? Who is shopping for clothing, for instance? I mean, there are so many things that are happening out there. Consumer spending has gone down so drastically, and the immediate implication is on your sales volume. So if consumer spending has gone down, that means your sales volume will also go down. And so businesses run the potential of closure and bankruptcy. Number two, you look at the input supply challenges. So as I just mentioned, so you have people who source their raw materials, they source their stock, they source their tools and whatever else from outside the country. So in two ways, you will remember that some countries are not even doing so much in terms of export. So you take the drug crisis, for instance, people were holding back on pharmaceutical products in other countries. And because we were heavily dependent on that, so it will mean scarcity of some drugs in the country. All right. So this is a very major issue because there is massive supply disruptions, across various industries. So that's another challenge most SMEs are facing at this time. And of course, export demands are muted for those of you who have been producing and you export. If you look at Africa generally, our exports go to countries that have been heavily impacted. In fact, 53%, that's the analysis done, that 53% of our export as a continent goes to locations that have been heavily impacted by this crisis. And so what does that mean for those who produce for export? It also means that there's no market, right? So finally, I will look at disruptions in business models. Of course, you already know models of businesses have changed. You cannot continue. I mean, for instance, those who typically, your business model depended on face-to-face physical interaction before you can sell. Now you are heavily impacted, okay? And of course, if you don't have capabilities in home working for your staff, that meant they were either throughout the period of this lockdown, they were either caught up at home, there was nothing they were doing, all right? We saw many organizations, even bigger corporations were affected by this, who had over this time not prepared their people for this kind of business resilience where you have to work from home. All right, so let me go through quickly the areas I think leaders of businesses, SMEs particularly, you will need to think through and start reinventing yourself. These are critical areas and it's inexhaustive. There will be other ones, but I just highlighted a few of these ones. Number one, you need to create new products or diversify whatever you are doing, all right? Let me put it this way. So your current assets, your existing assets today, are there other uses you can put them to? And we found a lot of creativity with a number of SMEs. So people who were into, production of cosmetics, you saw them immediately moving to sanitizers. That's the kind of thinking you should be having. So you look at your assets, your business assets today, are there other things that those things can be used for? Is there something you can easily diversify into? Now, this will be critical things at this time for you to think through. Number two, can you build a digital version of your business? And let me say this to every business leader. Digital is the way. I mean, I was just talking with a colleague of mine an hour or so ago before we came for this session. I was saying, you know what? All of these things around digitalization, they have always been there. Zoom has always been there. All of the things that we are now having to leverage on, they have always been there. But I think this pandemic just brought things to, a point of, a tipping point, as you will call it, right? Where we now realize we can't do without them. And so there is a complete acceleration in digital uptake. So you need to start thinking about how you create an online version of what you are doing. I mean, people are coming up with so many creative things. People that used to, maybe a makeup artist used to train people, people are carrying those things online. They are creating online content. People who are doing music are creating online content. They are now streaming those things live online, all right? And there are a lot of virtual things out there, from the great to the ridiculous. All kinds of things are happening virtually, and you cannot run away from it. This is the time to start thinking, how do you conduct your own digital transformation? Because your business, obviously, very obviously, needs to have an online version of it, all right? And the other one is to build partnerships. We are beginning to find out very repeatedly that collaboration is a key to the new economy, okay? You can no longer conduct the things you do all by yourself. You need to find others you need to partner with. So it could be an online community where you now have to carry your goods and display in a marketplace online. But you need to find collaboration to be able to sell, to be able to distribute. So how do you drive that? Or how do you create that platform yourself? And you are not the one producing, but you'll be a distribution platform. So we need to think about that. And of course, tied to that will be creating visibility for your business. Okay, I'll be addressing some of the solutions we have, all right, as we go on in this session. The other thing is just thinking through and being able to build business resilience. We found with what has happened that you cannot be thinking about today. You need to start thinking ahead. I mean, this has always been in the textbooks for leadership, for leadership and management. We need to build business resilience, but I mean, this caught many people unawares, caught nations unawares. So what are the strategies you are putting in place to be able to absorb shocks if things happen suddenly on you? Do you have a business resilience plan, a backup plan for your business that can keep things going even when there's disruption? So these are critical things for leaders to think about at this time. So again, review your business costs, right? So you can't spend on every and anything. This is the time to actually cherry pick what you spend on and what you don't spend on. We'll be having a session, I think in the next 2 weeks, with IFC, International Finance Corporation, and we're going to be dealing in detail about this issue of cost management for businesses, all right? Of course, we'll be liaising with the forum to be able to invite those of you who might be interested in joining that. Again, this is the time to cross-train your staff. what I mean by that is a time to empower them. They can't be, just experts in one thing. You need to create that opportunity for them to develop themselves. Invest more in your staff so that they can do more for you. Where we are in our industry, we are now thinking about universal bankers. So you walk into the banking hall, the person there is not only paying you money, the person is able to do multiple other things. So they have multiple skills that are there that they can use, all right? So you may need to think about that, investing in your staff if you can. And of course, obviously, it goes without saying that this is the time to stay close to our clients. And the final point I want to raise here is around adaptive leadership. I've already mentioned this. You have to start reinventing yourself, retraining yourself. This is the time for leadership to arise. Every moment of crisis is a moment, where leaders are revealed. You need to, be that leader that can easily reinvent you. So what are you doing in terms of developing your leadership capabilities at this time? It will be very critical. So find where you can get some of those skills that you require now. Leadership has become a very critical thing if you must continue to run your business. And that's why in Standard Chartered Bank, what we also do with our SMEs is that we say to ourselves, you know what? It is not only financing that is the problem of SMEs. In fact, if you ask me to rank the problems SMEs have, challenges SMEs have, I will put financing as a distant thought. I think our biggest need is training. Our biggest need is knowledge. How do you acquire knowledge that can propel you into the future? Okay, yesterday we were talking somewhere about raising future leaders. How do you become future leader? How do you become that leader who today can begin to embrace tomorrow and know what things will be required tomorrow? So that is very critical. Now, I'd like to say that as we zero in into the financing part, that I saw this quote, every crisis has both its dangers and its opportunity. It can spell either salvation or doom. Why businesses were closing down, that's also growing. All right, so you need to look around also and see where are the opportunities coming from. Nobody ever knew that Zoom could move the way they have moved. From 20,000 subscribers as of last year, it is over 20 million subscribers. It's over 200 million today. And it still continues to grow. All right, so there are opportunities sitting in the midst of this crisis. You need to be able to find, what they are. In the interest of time, I'll just, I won't spend time on this. These are some of the efforts being put by international finance, organizations to be able to support SMEs globally. All right, but let's go to what is happening in Nigeria. So the Central Bank of Nigeria, thankfully, has rolled out a lot of schemes, a lot of financing solutions to be able to support particularly SMEs in this time. And I will talk to you about the fact that all the typical funds that they have been putting out there, it used to be at 9%. Today, they've reduced it to 5%. So all the CBN support funds are now at 5%. And I think that's commendable, right? In order to support, SMEs. The second thing that has happened is the fact that within this period, CBN has actually allowed banks to be able to look at the borrowings, the outstanding loans of their clients and say to them, you know what, you can afford to give them payment holidays, right? So we are, for instance, implementing those payment holidays. So you defer payment for back into the next 3 months, okay? So today somebody is owing at their rentals, they are supposed to be paying. You now say, don't pay me within this period, start paying maybe in 3 months' time. So those things are there. There are such payment holidays, such restructurings of facilities, and the CBN has encouraged banks to do that, and banks are doing it, all right? So if you're not getting that, ask your bank. They can do that for you so that the pressure is taken off you. And of course, there are so many of the other things that the CBN has done, liquidity injections. There are funds, in fact, a 50 billion, fund that was created for SMEs and households who have been impacted by this challenge. And of course, that is being disbursed through NASA Microfinance Bank. So again, these are things in the public domain that you can actually access. You can go to the CBN website and see how you can, access. And of course, they're also encouraging banks to do lending, credit additionality in the system, okay, through the instrument of the LDR ratio, the loan to deposit ratio, that regime that they have implemented. The banks must lend up to 65% at least of their deposit base, all right? So these are some of the things that the central bank is doing. Now, I'll take what remains of the time to just stop quickly through what Standard Chartered Bank is doing. And now I need to stress this, that this is the essence of our partnership with NBCC, so that if there are things that can benefit members, we can bring it to the table for you. And if there are things that can benefit our existing clients, we can also bring them to you. And this is Standard Chartered Bank in a nutshell, right? You can look at all of that, but I want to just zero in on something here, that our purpose as a bank is to drive commerce and prosperity. That is our DNA. That's what we think about when we engage our clients. It is how do we drive commerce, how do we drive prosperity for our clients across our footprints, all right? Now, this for me summarizes some of the key things we are doing. So there is working capital financing for SMEs at this time, and thankfully that sits within my portfolio. That's what I wake up every morning to do, right? We will zero in on the nitty-gritty. So we finance working capital circles, all right? And of course, we are one of the biggest trade banks globally. We are the second biggest trade bank in the world. And of course, we do a lot in the space of trade, right? Whether it is for your bills for collection, it is for your letters of credit, whatever it is. When it comes to do with the movement of funds across multiple geographies, we are there, and we are very strong there, all right? And then we have our digital platforms that enables you to do everything you want to do, including opening your funds and all that. Doing international transfers, you can do it from the comfort of your office or your home or on the go, all right? Those things are there. One of the things that distinguishes us also is our wealth management proposition, where we help you manage your wealth, all right? Manage your wealth in terms of finding you investment windows across the world. I mean, the best bonds, the best mutual funds across the world, A-rated ones, we are available. We do it so well. The other one is that we don't just try to bank your company as an SME. We also bank your entire ecosystem. So we bank you as a person under what we call priority banking. These are privileged banking for those who are high net worth individuals, where I used to make this joke that is where we spoil our clients a little, because a lot of things that we do there helps to, give you recognition, as it were. And of course, we also do a lot for your employees, covering, giving them loans, including credit cards, personal loans, mortgages, and so on and so forth. All right, so we're zeroing in more specifically in the area of financing. Okay, so I've mentioned that we do a lot in terms of trade facilitation. That is our core business. We do that a lot. And of course, we're also involved in, supporting you in your business expansion projects, right? So you can take a business mortgage, you want to buy a property for your business, we can do that for you. Term loans to be able to acquire equipment, whatever it is, we are also available to do that. Of course, your regular overdrafts, you can also borrow against the investments that you have, okay? You can do that. And of course, we do short-term loans also. Now, this last slide, I guess that's my last slide. This last slide is very interesting for me because this speaks to the other non-financial things that we do to be able to support you. As I say, it's not enough to give an SME money. It's enough to also be there to guide, to be able to advise, provide advisory, all right? And be able to open them up to, market access and all of that. So this summarizes in a nutshell some of the critical, value propositions that we have that are non-financial that can help you build your business and, go on the journey of your growth plans, right? So we run trainings and development programs for SMEs, all right? And of course, this thing we are doing today is part of it. We do an industry event called the Conference, where we bring all kinds of people, all kinds of industry experts, and then we come to rub minds with SMEs. So of course, we provide business advisory, we, SME toolkits and all of that. The second thing is alliances and partnerships and unique offerings, especially with the kind of thing we are doing. So we try to align ourselves with some trade unions and chambers of commerce to be able to do some bespoke offerings for them, all right? Whatever will support them. I can't start mentioning the various associations we are dealing with. And of course, we're in partnership with IFC to be able to unlock values for you. There are quite a couple of things we are doing with International Finance Corporation to be able to unlock value for SMEs. And of course, we also provide you an opportunity for business visibility and market access. As I was saying earlier, I think that knowledge is number one, The second thing that SMEs require will be market access, right? So how do we create access for your market, all right? That's where we are partnering with Google, partnering with Facebook to be able to create business visibility for you. So we have, we help you with Google My Business. So your company, if somebody types your company on Google, they can see, you can appear on Google Map, right? If you don't have a website, they can actually create a website for you at a very minimal cost to you on an annual subscription basis, right? We're also doing something with Facebook to be able to do trainings that will help you boost your business. And I think very important is the fact that we're a network bank. Our footprint spreads across, major places in the world. So what does that do for you? And we also bank as part of our ecosystem, some of the big multinationals that maybe you supply to or you do something for, you distribute their products. So we have bespoke programs that help you in that space. And of course, we also do the trade corridor thing that helps you link up with our clients in other markets, all right? So maybe you are doing something in Asia, you are doing something in the Middle East, and that's where we have our presence. We can also be there to support that whole agenda for you. And of course, if you need to have, set up businesses in some of these places, like the Africa Trade Corridor, if you want to set up business in our locations within Africa, we can also support you in being able to, set up your company there and set up an account with Standard Chartered Bank in those locations. All right. So what I will do is to pause here. I think I've said so much in such a short time. I'll pause here so that we can start taking questions. Dr. Dada, please, over to you.
Thank you so very, very much, Dr. Dike. Thank you for the very deep insights that you've given to us. I'm particularly impressed by the offerings that are available to us as MSMEs. I also take the point that we cannot uninstall 2020. I like that. And that this is a time for adaptive leadership and just make sure you stay alive. But what we've just heard, I'm not so sure that staying alive is just the issue. We're going to stay alive and we're going to thrive. Thank you very, very much. We'll begin to take the questions, but I'll just like you to make a small clarification around the 50 billion naira targeted credit, which MSMEs can access through NISAL. Please, can you just throw some more light around that?
Okay. All right. So the 50 billion finance support program of the central bank. So there's a form. You can find it in the CBN website. You can find it in the NASAL website, right? So you need to complete the form, and there are certain requirements that you need to meet. And of course, those applications have to go directly, all right? The CBN is only they are not using deposit money banks, so no commercial bank is involved in the processing and disbursement, right? It is only NASAL Microfinance Bank that is doing that. And I think they have collected several applications before, so we can check and find if it is still, they are processing so many of them, okay? So that's about that scheme. It is only NASAL Microfinance that is, able to disburse, that process and disburse.
Okay. Another quick question here from one of our members of the audience is saying that with the benefit of hindsight, the biggest challenge to MSME is attention to details and lack of skill. How do we resuscitate our trade schools and training programs to make sure that this challenge is overcome? Dr. Dike.
All right. Okay, I think that's a very great observation, right? Let me give you a very, very practical example. So MSMEs, when they run into financial problem, they want a bank to fund them. But by the time they get to the bank, they find out that they are not bankable. All right? Because all the basic things that they should have been doing over time, they've not been doing that. So they now come, they are looking for money because meanwhile, they didn't have proper accounting records. Meanwhile, their monies they were just doing cash, so it wasn't reflected in any bank account, right? So this is where some of these intervention programs, and I want to commend you for this kind of forum that you continue to hold. This is where this sort of intervention programs come in. I know several other associations that are building, some training schools to be able to support MSMEs. I mean, there's one that we are partnering with already to be able to be part of their faculty, right? There is no other way around it. It is to start having this kind of intervention programs that train SMEs. There's a model that we found with one bank in Kenya, where if they are giving you a loan, you will need to go through a program. When you have gone through that program, they give you the loan, and then they continue to support you, right? In terms of mentorship, because it's important you know how to use the fund. So, I mean, very fair observation. There is a need to resuscitate all of those kind of training programs, and it's part of our commitment as a bank. How do we support in training SMEs? Yeah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dike. Another question says that for those in freight forwarding and support service, they seem to have difficulties in accessing credit. In your experience, what would be your advice to them for those in freight forwarding and support service businesses?
Okay. All right. I would say a complete yes that there's a challenge in dealing with them. Let me explain what I mean. If you have kept proper banking record, right? You have your financial records intact. The bank you are banking with can see what you are doing. Obviously, if you approach them, they should be able to assess you and provide funding for you if there is a compelling business case for that. Remember, banks hold money in trust for other people. It is not, the bank doesn't own those monies. These are monies belonging to depositors and shareholders, right? So they need to also do due diligence and be sure that in giving out the money comes back. I don't think there is any special discrimination for freight forwarders. However, when we entered this season of the pandemic and the lockdown and so on and so forth, I know a number of banks, and that is normal, a number of banks took a position. All those sectors that were heavily impacted, you cannot obviously continue lending to them, all right? So you will now need to cherry pick which sectors you lend to, i.e., which are the critical sectors, for instance, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. So those were the kind of sectors that a number of banks were saying, okay, let's continue supporting you. Because if you lend there, there is a cash flow that can come to repay the loan. So my point to the freight forwarder on the platform would be, just make sure that on your own, you have proper records of your business. And if there is a compelling business proposal that you have, you articulate it properly and share with your bankers, okay? And we are available. If you need further support in terms of how do I become bankable, what are the key things to look out for, right? You are free to contact us and we'll get an advisor to actually walk you through that. But I don't think there's a bank that will say, we'll not lend to freight forwarders, right? But if you see what is happening in the ports, how much of goods are coming in, how much of goods are leaving. So if it is an issue of the fact that that area has been badly affected at this time, then it is momentary. And after this period, things can get back to normal. That'll be my response.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dike. I'm very closely associated to that. One of our participants is asking to say, look, I am a startup business with less than 1 year experience. How can you help me to drive my growth plans? What can I quickly do, particularly in Standard Chartered? Do you have programs that can quickly help me drive up my growth plans as a startup less than 1 year old?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I'll be very clear. I'm sure this question is also coming from the fact that if you go to any commercial bank today, it is difficult for you to get financing if you are a startup, right? I mean, that's normal. And I'll tell you why. Because the mortality rate for startups, some put it at 70, some 80. I mean, it's there, all right? Which is what brings us back to how do you finance your startup, okay? So you look at your savings, you look at borrowing from friends and family, you look at, getting an angel investor, whatever, to be able to come into what you do if you have a compelling proposition, right? I normally advise, if you're a startup, don't start with borrowing from a bank. Try with what you have so that if it fails, you don't have a double whammy. Your business has collapsed and also you are indebted. That is typically what we advise startups to do. However, let me say that I don't know the age of the person who is running this startup, because I'm also aware that BOI has something for those who are just coming fresh out of university. Maybe you have your NYC certificate, you deposit it with them and they give you a certain amount of money. They have some little loans that they give. I don't know what the specific situation of this individual is, but those kind of things are there. But let me also say that even though you are a startup, let's assume that I've worked in a particular industry for other people for say 20 years, and I come out and I want to start something in that similar industry. Banks will not typically see you as a startup because they'll be looking at your 20 years experience in that sector, okay? So it comes into the appraisal process. So they will be able to support you. But my take would be, my main advice would be, please learn as much as you can. Learn as much as you can in that area. Collaborate where you can collaborate. Don't do it alone. Find synergies and partnerships. You may not be able to make it at this time. Again, I'm just saying generally because I don't know the specifics of your situation, all right? Where you can partner, where you can invite somebody to do some equity investment in your company, let that happen, okay? But don't start your startup company with borrowing from a commercial bank. It is highly risky. And those commercial banks may not even be willing to do that in the first place, okay? So that's my take.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much. This is an interesting one. He says that all the various loans from central bank have a way of competing with those of the commercial banks. For instance, how does Standard Chartered Bank able to resist substituting the various packages from central bank with your own loan proposals? How do you manage the two? The loan offerings coming from central bank versus your own homegrown offering. How do you resist that temptation to substitute one for the other?
Very interesting question. This is a smart person. All right, so you're asking me to reveal the secret of our trade. Okay, but I'll be very, very honest and authentic with you, okay? Now it's very simple. Clients come and they request for, the CBN funding. There are two ways to handle that. Number one, the difference between the CBN funding and the commercial bank funding is only in the pricing, it's in the cost. Remember, it is not free money. So even though you are applying for a loan supported by the CBN requires that the bank will use the same risk assessment criteria. However you process your own regular loan, whatever are your requirements, that is also the requirement you should apply. So let's not get it mixed up. You apply your credit policies in, issuing that loan. The only difference is in the pricing and the fact that liquidity will be coming from the central bank, okay? So that is one. So in terms of the tension between selling your own loan products and selling the other one, let's remember, the CBN funding, sometimes it doesn't come immediately, right? So what banks typically do, working with their clients, may be to say, okay, so let's give you a bridging facility. You want to do this thing and you have a time frame within which to do it, so we'll give you like a stopgap loan, and then By the time the CBN funding comes, we apply to the CBN. When it comes, you use it to liquidate that. So that's one way. The second part of it is that there are people who obviously may not qualify for those CBN loans. So you may still need to go through the normal route of assessing the loan from, you know, a commercial bank, because it doesn't apply for everything, right? So depending on the loan purpose, if it is something that is not covered, you now need to, you know, approach the central bank. But we are still in business. Every bank is still in business of lending. I mean, the pie is so large. The demands are so much, right? So nobody, you can't shortchange one to be able to do the other. And I don't think there's any bank out there that will, a client will approach and say, I want the CBN funding, and they will say, no, we'll process it for you. We'll give you our own. It doesn't actually happen.
Thank you very much, Doc. Another one, very straightforward, is saying that you mentioned in one of your slides that the one of the major appropriate responses to COVID-19 is cross-training. And as members of the MSME in the NBCC, what sort of trainings can we avail ourselves of from your bank?
From the bank?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so if you know, serious responsibility. I mean, I commend the banking industry what they've done within this period of the crisis. If you go online, you will see a lot of webinars, a lot of trainings being done by banks, right? I think the issue will be, how do you, continually have information about those ones will be very useful to you, all right? For instance, I mean, my bank will be doing lots and lots, series of trainings on investments, trainings, I mean, all kinds of trainings to support people through this period. As I just mentioned, we have another one coming up, right, in a week or two with the International Finance Corporation that will zero in on how do you manage your cost as an SME. So those things are there. It's just get information about them. And even beyond banks, there are other groups that are doing all manner of things. You can actually access a lot of trainings free, okay? Even some major universities in the world, a number of them are doing trainings. IFC, for instance, is doing lots of trainings for SMEs, all right? So just be open, search for that information and be able to, leverage them as they are available.
Thank you very much. The last question here is also interesting. It said you mentioned building a digital version of your business. So this participant wants you to throw some light to that proposition, building a digital version of your business.
Okay, so when I say building a digital version of your business, let me give you an example. If my statistics is correct, about 96 million Nigerians, yeah, should be, either 94 or 96, right? About 94, 96 million Nigerians are online. They access the internet in one way or the other. That is a big marketplace, believe me, right? So what I'm saying with that is that it covers the area of digital presence. Be able to make yourself known and seen and visible digitally. That's one part of it. The second key question will be, this thing that I'm selling in a particular location, because there's a point I missed in mentioning. Thank you for now bringing it up. The new economy is contactless. That's where we are going to. We are moving into a contactless economy. I don't know how many of you know, Microsoft just recently closed down all their retail shops globally, and they say they are closed permanently. They will never open them again. All those retail shops where you go, you can try out this, check this, and all of that. They've closed them. Everything has moved online. So the same things you could do in the physical location, they have migrated all of that online. Now, you may not have the capability and the deep pocket to be able to do all of that. But what we are saying is this. If, for instance, there's something you sell that can be displayed on Jumia, please find a way to display your products on Jumia. And I can tell you this, there are a lot of some of these aggregators that are actually coming into Nigeria, where they create like a marketplace online, where you can come, buyers and sellers can meet in those marketplaces. And you can actually be checking. You check price in this one, you check price in the other one, check price in the other one, instead of going to a physical market. All right? So those things are happening. Let me give you an instance. The other instance is, look at the revolution going on in the medical field. All right? We are now doing telemedicine. And believe me, those things will continue to grow. Who wants to go to a hospital and sit down for hours? So you can be in the comfort of your home and the doctor consults with you, right? That's where the world is moving to. So whatever you do, think through it. And the challenge SMEs have often is that they don't have capacity and they don't buy capacity. SMEs will typically not want to spend money to bring a tax consultant to come and put them through. SMEs will not want to spend money to have an accountant. SMEs will not want to spend money to bring somebody to consult for you digitally, right? That is why what we rather do, we are doing some trainings for our clients on digital presence. How do you, digitize your business? How do you create online presence? Okay, with some of the partnerships I've mentioned to you. So whatever you do, you may be able to find a way to put it online, let more people see you. It creates access to market for you. And is there a way they can access your products online or digitally? I mean, it's just something to think about. It may not happen overnight, but it's a journey that each of us need to embark upon because the world is moving contactless.
Well, thank you very, very, very much, Dr. Dike. I'm sure we will have opportunity to still dig deeper as we go in future. But at this point, permit me to say a very big thank you on behalf of the Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce. I think this has been a very insightful and illuminating session. Thank you very, very, very much. We look forward to also knocking on your doors so that we can be part of this cost management program with the IFC that is coming up shortly.
Sure.
Thank you very much
Sure.
once again.
Yeah.
We'll round up now.
Okay, just a final word. So thanks a lot.
Yes.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Dada. Yeah. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate this partnership, and it's my hope that we will even make it stronger in the days ahead. And for anybody who is interested in any of the offerings, please feel free to get to us. All right, we'll be available. There will be people that will respond to you. We actually shared our contact detail. You can just drop an email or contact us any other way. You can go to our website and just contact us. We'll come back to you and see how we take this forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. Thank you very much. So back to NBCC, just to share a few slides as we end this presentation. Again, thanking Dr. Benjamin Dike for a very good job. As we close, for those of us who came in a little bit late, Nigerian-British Chamber of Commerce is interested in you joining us and becoming part of our team, because as we've said, we have a vision to be the foremost channel of trade and commerce between Nigeria and Britain. And our mission is to continually encourage and promote mutual beneficial trade relations between Nigeria and Britain. Our past webinars are also available. You can always have access to them. We also have some oncoming programs. In the month of July, we have 2 programs which is being anchored by our sectoral group, which is learning, education, and training. We're going to have 2 programs in the month of July. Please feel free to join us for these programs. They are on your screen right now. One is around optimal performance management, slated for 14th and 15th of July. And the next is the strategic and innovative leadership for business continuity. Like we've said, this is the time of adaptive leadership. So training, training, and training. Please follow us on social media, and we will always be glad to answer any questions which you may have. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your time, and please have a good afternoon. Thank you.